There's a chap at the door, special delivery, courtesy a grinder. You put down your glass of wine and try to mind for your keys on. Hold on, Fed, it's a serial killer. But he's messaged I'm here through his WhatsApp number, and he didn't emerge here last time. But just in case, another swig of wine. That's definitely him and the frosted glaze. So why are you still so nervous, so phased? Oh, here goes nothing. You open the door and burst out laughing. He's wearing this furry Chewbacca coat that's straight out of Liberace's laughed. Oh God, you've already pissed him off. With a stuck-up nose he swans on past. There's a Manny in your lobby, Marianne. There's a Manny in your lobby, Marianne. He says the quote's fae boohoo man, and all you can say is, oh, boohoo, as he ging through to the living room, tap deep breaths, and try to calm down. He's brought the same cheap bottle of rage you've been drinking, Lidl's, Argentinian. You speak some shite about drinking green wine on time your hour in his capital, Lisbon. He says that I hate in Cascais, and besides, he didn't drink till he moved to London, so he wouldn't have tried it anyway. He rolls his eyes. His curls glister as he tucks his seat, and his seashell necklace rattles, a gift for his Cape Verdean grandfather. You pour out 2 massive glasses of reed as he peeks about his new job in the back of some chain restaurant. In his thick Portuguese accent he whines that none of the Portuguese chefs speak English. You just about piss yourself if you ask if this means he would have voted for Brexit. He says it's made to do with their accent. He does not like it. Says it makes him feel sick. So you start speaking in your strongest Doric. But of course he asks if you're speaking Gaelic. When I needed a shelter, were you there, were you there? When I needed a shelter, were you there? I would, but you went too far, you say. As you mind your dad threatening to get you hiding outside the bar. But only after telling you that you're an embarrassment. That you being a writer and gay means that you'll die alone with nothing to your naming day. Nae mortgage. When I needed a healer, were you there, were you there? Nae bairns. When I needed a healer, were you there? Nae nothing. And the creed and the colour and the name won't matter, were you there? You sit up in bed and face the wall. You can't keep this going any longer. I'm feeling pretty tired, you say to your Italian stallion, you nae word of a lie. He gets dressed, and withholding a final kiss, you say your final goodbyes.
The life that I was living appeared to be beyond description. I had neither read it on a page nor seen it described in the world. That we were not like other families seemed to be no one's fault but ours. I grew up in Richmond upon Thames, a rarefied world perched atop a hill, a position so emblematic it seemed bestowed like an act of geographical entitlement. The tuck shop where we bought our penny sweets in thin white paper bags after school was called the Hilltop. J.M.W. Turner painted the view from the hill. Mick Jagger and Jerry Hall lived in one of the handsome white mansions that overlooked it. One of Charles Dickens' favourite places to mark a birthday or launch a book was at the Star and Garter, in his time a hotel, in mine a home for injured war veterans, nowadays a meticulous refurbishment of luxury 2, 3 and 4 bedroom residences. History had left its mark on Richmond, even if we seemed to be absent from its story. Part 2, Life with James Baldwin. When I found James Baldwin, I would like to be able to write that I was a teenager, in that critical moment when we need the things we need to show up for us. It is not true. By this point, I had left Richmond upon Thames, and not by choice. Our house was repossessed, and just like that, the rarefied life at the top of the hill, which had always felt conditional, was over. For those who belonged there, that life could not be taken from them. For us, we passed through it like flour through a sieve. But then I did make a choice. I left England. My sister did the same, but she went further to Japan. Baldwin fled New York for Paris. My move was less dramatic, but to me just as glamorous. I moved 400 miles north to Glasgow, which possesses something of a mini Manhattan about it. I had moved to Scotland, another other country, one with which I share even less history. There, studying English, I came across Giovanni's Room, Baldwin's Paris novel, his gay novel, the one that might have been an antidote to shame if I'd been there yet, but I was not. I had just discovered Toni Morrison. Also, I was in love with men and had not yet met the women with whom I would spend this precious life. I still am, busy coming to terms with my racial identity, or rather the ways in which I've been unseen by white people and unclaimed by brown people. Coming to terms with my own alienation, which cannot be overcome and which I no longer wish to. Or now, coming to terms with my complete identification with James Baldwin. It was Notes of a Native Son, which I finally read in my late 30s, that begot me. First, I read Stranger in the Village in Harper's Magazine, originally published in the October of 1953. Its opening line became a companion for life. From all available evidence, no black man had ever set foot in this tiny Swiss village before I came. And if there was no place for this particular queer black man, there would be no place for me either. I ended up writing about my special attitude in what's probably the most personal chapter of my book, Homelands. It's an attitude which was formed by a single paragraph of Baldwin's words in Autobiographical Notes. He closes that breathtaking essay with a brief list of his interests. So, as I began with a historical echo of that essay's opening line, I shall close with my list. I, like Baldwin, love to eat and drink and laugh. I am also deadened by earnestness, and though I'm embarrassed to admit it, find those who ingratiate themselves with others, they were called tryhards at my school, abhorrent. I love my dog, and to watch any dog being a dog is a source of the purest pleasure for me. I love walking and the syncopation, sprawl, and anonymity of cities. I love nature, though I never feel at home in it. I love being in water. I love reading books and writing. The practice of using words to find out what I think is when I am most at peace. I love babies, children, my parents, which is to say people, really, flaws and all, even if in theory only the ones who try too hard. I love the vicissitudes of a single day.
"It isn't my fault," she said again, her voice faint on the line. This meant she thought it was. The more vehemently my mother asserts an opinion, the more certain it is she's disguising her doubt. I reassured her, as I had before, it was not her fault. There was no fault. There was a great confluence of circumstance, the many strands of history, his physical ill health, the desperate times. It was all of it and none of it. But there was significance in the choice of destination, whether we spoke of it or not. She'd holidayed on this coastline as a child, her father driving the family along thin, dusty roads in an Austin A40, long before the motorways were built. She hadn't crossed the Welsh border since we'd buried her mother, though nobody mentioned it. That was nearly 20 years ago. She'd booked Barmouth before she'd noticed the alterations in Roland's personality. When she had, she'd phoned me. We agreed to go ahead anyway, watch for trouble, make the necessary plans. What did Dad say? Dad agrees. The cottage was a little way out of town, overlooking the estuary, where the silty fresh water rolled out to meet salt, unremitting sunshine, a buoyant breeze, sparkling hills on both sides. The first evening was spent eating fish and chips on the seafront, mushy peas and cold beer. My parents were distracted and picked at the greasy batter. Afterwards, the seagulls did well. We spent the second day on the beach. Mum and Dad read. Maggie swam, wearing the swimsuit she'd bought when we were in France the summer before. I watched her, waved at her, took wide, pointless photographs of the landscape with her at the centre. Roland walked up and down, collecting rocks, laying them out, rearranging them, muttering. Later, I decided to climb Cadair Idris. Just you and Roland, my dad replied when I suggested it after dinner. Get him out of the house while we get everything sorted, my mother added. Just me and Roland. We got an early bus from Barmouth through Dolgethy up to Minford and were dropped in the car park. There was dew on the ground and a low, viscous mist. Less pleasing were the signposts and handrails guiding a stream of hikers up the slope. I'd hoped, foolishly, for an empty landscape, a pure sacrament, two siblings in nature. In the foothills I found romance where I could, a roiling brook, pale flowers stressing themselves amid the stifling bracken, a repetition of wagtails bobbing on the rocks like a flickering barcode. I see wagtails wherever I go. It's a phenomenon I can't explain. Those birds follow me. For 30 seconds I watched him pull something of himself from his mind, like a small beast unfurling from a protective ball to reveal a tender belly. Do you remember when we were in Scotland that summer? In Ardnamurchan, he said. And there was a cloud of midges so dark we thought the forest had caught fire. I could have laughed. I grabbed at other memories in a kind of frenzy, eager to keep his thoughts clear. The little cottage with the old book of maps, the adder we spotted in the woods, the ferry trip to Tobermory. Each attempt failed. My brother's face slipped beneath the surface of the dark, unforgiving water, a murky meniscus between him and me that caught all light, all detail, all reflection, and slowed the sound of my voice in his ears and his voice in mine. Love was a given. There had never been any need to pick it from the many other obvious facts of life and give it contours. I had never said, "I love you, brother." It was presented in my amicable bullying, in the intensity of the competition that existed between us, in the way I knew I could count on him when he was well.